I am the city records clerk for the city of Kettering. I take care of the city records for Kettering and the former Van Buren Township. And I'm here today representing our city's America 250 committee. Has everybody heard of America 250? Yes. You know what the actual name is for the 250th celebration? Semi-quincentennial. Very good. It's semi-quincentennial. Semi means half, quin means 5, centennial is 500th. So put them all together, you get half of 500th. A little easier to say America 250. So, the state set up monthly themes for the celebration of America 250. Started back in January with Ohio's firsts and originals. And I originally did this presentation at the Latham Center back in January. And the library asked me to come and do it again. And they wanted to film it for the Miami Valley Cable Council. So that's why the cameraman's in the background over there. Theme for February was Innovations and Leaders. Kettering had plenty of those with Charles F. Kettering and Edward A. Deeds. Also, Governor Cox had his residence in Van Buren Township. March was entertainment. Again, plenty to talk about there. Gary Sandy from WKRP in Cincinnati. Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson. April, transportation. You got to go with Charles Kettering again there. May, arts and literature. June, parks and natural resources. July is homecomings. August is fairs and festivals. September is sports. October is food and farming. November is our veterans and also first responders. And December is looking towards Ohio's future. But this presentation was originally in January. So it started here, Kettering, Ohio's firsts and originals. Now, old joke, what is round at both ends and high in the middle? Oh, high, oh. The highest point in the state is Bell Fountain. That's not us. Highest point in Montgomery County is us. That's Kettering. Does anybody know where the highest point in Kettering is?
Is it on Ackerview Lane or near Ackerview Lane?
Very close. The water tower on David Road is the highest point in Montgomery County. This photograph here was taken from the top of the water tower back in 1953. This white line down here at the bottom is the edge of the water tower. Looking west towards David's Cemetery. There was something else that was special about this particular area right here. And it has to do with the first inhabitants of the area. At one time, there were 2 small Indian mounds in that area. They were excavated in the 1800s, didn't find anything, but occasionally people in the area have found other Native American artifacts. Arrowheads, pottery fragments, things like that. The Native American cultures were divided into segments. The Paleo-Americans, 12,000 BCE to 8,000 BCE. Nomadic culture, very rare to find some stone tools, but apparently some have been found in our area. The Archaic period, 8,000 BCE to 1500 BCE. They were known for setting up seasonal camps. They were a semi-nomadic culture. Stone, bone, and antler tools. Again, very rare to find anything like that, but there have been things found. The woodland culture, 1500 BCE to 400 AD, that was the mound builders. They had permanent settlements, and they used ceramics. The glaciers, which created our hills and valleys here in Ohio and here in Kettering, left us plentiful deposits of sand and clay that were used by the Native Americans. They had a sophisticated trade network throughout the region, and they would trade ceramics for flint from central Ohio for their arrowheads, and copper from up in Michigan, shell artifacts from the Ohio River and Mississippi River areas. So our clay went a long ways. From 1000 AD to 1200 AD was the Fort Ancient culture. Subsistence agriculture made its appearance. They had permanent settlements. And they had a fire circle over at the area of Walther Park here in Kettering. Again, it was excavated in the 1800s. Nothing significant was found, but they were able to date it to this period of time. Then there was a large gap, 500 years, until the Miami peoples moved into the area. They used this area as a seasonal hunting ground. Their permanent settlements were farther north, about 35 miles north, up in Miami County. Piqua was a Native American settlement. They moved out, or were pushed out about 50 years later by the Shawnee. And again, the Shawnee used this as a seasonal hunting ground. They did not maintain any permanent settlements here. So there were no permanent settlements when the first European settlers arrived. But Kettering does have a connection to the Shawnee through John H. Patterson. His mother, Julia Johnston Patterson, was the daughter of Colonel John Johnston of Piqua. He was the federal Indian agent for the federal government, responsible for negotiating with the local Native Americans. Julia actually helped her father write a Shawnee English dictionary that they have the draft version of that at Carillon Park in the new archives that they've opened. So, any questions so far? Okay. Does anybody know what the oldest street in Kettering is? Want to take a guess?
Mad River.
Mad River. Very good. Mad River. As you can see, this map right here is the one that goes up there. That is Stroop across the top, Far Hills coming up the other side there. That little cross section there in the center where it says CH, that CH stands for church. That is David's Church. Mad River Road was first surveyed in 1795. It went all the way from the Mad River up just north of Dayton down to Cincinnati. It was a private road. It was not a turnpike. Far Hills used to be the Dayton-Lebanon Turnpike. It was commissioned by the government and maintained by tolls. Mad River was a private road. The landowners along the road were responsible for maintaining it. And that is why it got cut off in various places. So that the 5-mile section now that starts in Kettering maintains its original route and its original name, making it the oldest street in Kettering. And if you look right here on this map from 1930, you can see that it still went up to Stroop Road. The first settlement in what became Van Buren Township, there, was Beavertown. Beavertown was settled before 1803. Not sure exactly when they settled it. The first settlers arrived in 1796. Beavertown was up and running by 1803, so it got a few years there. But Beavertown had the first doctor in the area, the first school, the first mill, the first blacksmith and wagon shop, the first church and cemetery. Beavertown Cemetery was originally the Beulah burial grounds, part of the Beulah Church in Beavertown. They also had the first general store and post office. The general store and post office was right over here, the intersection of what is now Wilmington Pike and Dorothy Lane. There were 2 general stores in that area. One was owned by the Dean family, and the post office was always kept at the general store, and at the time, post office was who ran the post office was determined by the political party in power at the time. So when political parties changed, the post office moved across the street. The Dean family at one point tried to rename the area Deantown to avoid confusion with another town by the name of Beavertown over in eastern Ohio. The name didn't stick. Beavertown also had the first railroad in Montgomery County. That was not until 1849. So, and the reason that railroad was built has to do with our next slide here. We have Beavertown Cemetery, the Washington Monument, St. Peter's Cathedral, St. Peter's in Chains Cathedral in Cincinnati. I'm not allowed to use the actual logo, but which team in Ohio is... There's a connection between all those. Do you know what that might be? Take a guess. It has to do with why the first railroad was built. Beavertown was the location of stone quarries that produced some very high-quality limestone. Some of the limestone was used for headstones at Beavertown Cemetery. was used to build Omer Hall at Ohio State University, used in the construction of St. Peter's in Chains Cathedral in Cincinnati, and was used in it's such high quality limestone, they used it for the interior of the Visitors Center at the Washington Monument. The quarries were played out by the middle to late 1800s, but that's our connection.
Where is the Beavertown Cemetery? Is it still there?
Beavertown Cemetery is still there. It's over off of Valleywood. Do you know where the yard debris drop-off center is
Oh, that's
on?
called Beavertown. I didn't know that was the name of it. I've been there before.
Yeah, that Beavertown Cemetery is behind the yard debris drop-off center.
It's actually owned by the city of Kettering now.
Yes,
But they still do burials there.
yes. Not a lot of burials, but we still do.
So there isn't that much
Yeah,
room anymore.
right. It's not a very big cemetery.
Has anybody talked about like trying to clean up some of the graves of like the Civil War era? Because some of those you can't read.
Yeah.
I just wonder, so the city owns it?
The city owns it.
Yeah.
I actually just a couple weeks ago, the cemetery is maintained by our Parks Maintenance Department, and Gary Schussler, who's the head of Parks Maintenance, was just asking me a couple weeks ago. They want to do some cleanup and renovation, and wanted to help research it and get everything in order for them to do that. So
Well, if
there
they
are
ask-
plans.
If they ask for volunteers,
Yeah.
I mean, put it out there because I think
Yeah.
people would like to see that happen.
Yes. And they do a pretty good job of maintaining it, but yeah, a lot of those stones are difficult to read and need to get some rubbings on some of those. So, any other questions before we move on? Okay. The United Society of Believers, the Shakers, had a settlement here in Van Buren Township. They called it the Watervliet Shaker Community over there on County Line Road. It is now Kettering Research Park and State Farm Park and the Armory were all part of the Shaker community. Shakers got their name from the dance moves that they did as part of their religious services. Does anybody know what was original and first about the Shakers? They were the first religious denomination to give equal rights to men and women. Women could preach and hold positions in the leadership of the Shaker Church. Tasks were equally divided between men and women. Men and women lived separately. They were a celibate group, but the women had equal status to the men. Now, the next major development in Van Buren Township came at the late 1800s, early 1900s, as manufacturing began to take off. The manufacturing plants needed workers. The workers needed homes. A man by the name of Carr saw that need and developed Carrtown, C-A-R-R-E-T-O-W-N, a settlement over in what is now the Southern Hills area of Kettering. Southern Hills, they are the reason that Kettering is Kettering, but we'll get to that in a minute. Is anybody here a fan of 1980s music? Take It on the Run? Recognize that line? REO Speedwagon. The Southern Hills neighborhood is the one that created the first volunteer fire department here in Kettering, Van Buren Township at the time. Their first fire engine was an REO Speedwagon. People think it's just the name of the band, but it is the actual name of a vehicle. And of course, Take It on the Run, a fire call is called a run. Yeah. That was back in 1922 that they created the fire department. Something else that you can thank Kettering for is a major convenience that we all enjoy was first developed here at Van Buren Township at the time, now Kettering, and it has to do with one of these houses. Up at the top left, we have Governor Cox's mansion, Trails End. Then we have Poland Farm, Charles F. Kettering's home, Ridgely Terrace, and Colonel Deed's Moraine Farm estate. Does anybody know what major convenience happened in one of these houses?
Starter.
The air conditioning.
Air conditioning. Do you know which house it was?
I guess Cox, but I don't.
Yeah.
Ridgely Terrace.
Ridgely Terrace, yes. Charles F. Kettering, first house built with central air conditioning. He needed it because he did a lot of work in his lab in the house, and he needed to be comfortable and keep his equipment cool.
Which is that house on the bottom left?
Bottom left, that is Moraine Farm,
Okay.
the home of Colonel Deeds, and that's what we're going to talk about next, because there were a lot of things that went on at Moraine Farm. Colonel Deeds, of course, he worked for National Cash Register Company, helped Charles Kettering found Delco Products to produce the self-starter for automobiles.
Which one? Kettering Parks. Kettering Code Red.
Colonel Deeds was also in charge of the Miami Conservancy District after the 1913 Dayton flood. At one time, he had a pool at Moraine Farm. It's not there anymore. They filled it in. But he drained it and used it to set up flood control experiments. Don't know how his wife Edith felt about that, but she was probably used to it. Deeds and Kettering set up a STEM school in the 1920s. This map here shows Charles Kettering's property right next to Deeds' property, and there's the little school right there along Stroop Road. They felt that students weren't getting enough education in math and science and engineering. And so they set up a private school for employees of Delco Products to send their children to school. And they lasted about 4 or 5 years. Just long enough for Charles Kettering's son to graduate. drones. Charles Kettering, working with Deeds, created the first drone, the first radio-controlled unmanned aircraft that test flew from Moraine Farm. Moraine Farm had its own airstrip, one of the first houses in the country built with its own private airstrip. This is Stroop Road down here. This is the Moraine Farm house. This little area right here was the paved area where the plane parked. It would come in, landing one of these fields, and then taxi up and park right there for them to walk into the house. So, they also did some Moraine Farm. For a while, it was actually a working farm. They did experiments. Charles Kettering had a theory that plants would respond to electrical current. They did some experiments with that. And I just saw a news item just a few weeks ago that somebody is testing whether electrical currents will affect plant growth. It's like, yeah, we did that 100 years ago. Yes, ma'am.
That dome, was that an observatory?
Yes, that is one of the few private homes in the country to have an observatory tower. Yes?
Mr. Brannick, is it true that Amelia Earhart used that private airstrip at one time? Is there any, I've heard that, but is that true? Can you validate that?
We can validate that Amelia Earhart visited and stayed at Deeds' estate. We don't know whether she flew in and landed there or not, but we know that at one point she was in Dayton, one of her promotional tours, and she stayed at Deeds' Moraine farmhouse. She met with Orville Wright and Charles Kettering, and actually one of the guest rooms at Moraine Farm is named the Amelia Earhart room because that's where she slept, but we don't know that she actually flew in and landed there. So. Any other questions? Recognize this photo? Town and Country. Yeah. Town and Country was the first shopping center in the world built with a certain modern convenience. Can anybody name what that was?
Parking lot?
It's in the photo. You can see it.
Lights in the parking lot?
Lights in the parking lot. Lighted parking lots for evening shopping. Used to be that the stores closed down at sunset, or before. Town and Country changed the way the world shops. 24-hour Walmart, you have Town and Country to thank for that. Okay. And of course, Kettering itself is a famous first. Kettering, when it incorporated from Van Buren Township in 1952, was the first township in Ohio to incorporate all at once as a municipality. That had never been done before. It was also, by land area, the largest village to incorporate up until that time, and the most populous to become a village. We should have been a city, but that is a whole nother presentation.
When will that be?
That presentation will actually be in October at the Latham Center. So, yeah, Kettering itself is a famous first. And of course, Kettering was founded on progress, and nothing demonstrates that better than our police department. We were one of the first police departments to use computers for police records keeping back in the 1960s. We automated the dispatch functions. And we were one of the first cities in Ohio to use a police helicopter. We got a federal grant for that, so we didn't pay for it out of our income taxes. So, Kettering police have always embraced new technology, and they are still doing that. And, okay. Here we have Governor Cox's mansion, Trails End, Kettering Hospital, Mars, and the Mars rover. Does anybody know what the connection is there? Okay. When Charles F. Kettering died, the family created Kettering Hospital in his memory. When Governor Cox died, his family created the Cox Heart Institute, which is part of Kettering Hospital, designed to research ways to treat and prevent heart disease. Researchers at the Cox Heart Institute developed the first intracardial pacemaker, the one that's planted inside the heart. Now, when you've got an electric device planted inside your body, it needs a power source. You can't just plug yourself in. You know. So it needed an internal power source. Researchers at Cox Heart Institute developed something called thermionic conversion. It's a power cell that converts heat energy into electrical energy to keep the pacemaker going. Those thermionic conversion packs were later adapted for the Mars rovers and are being used in space exploration. And it started here. Okay. Some of the other America 250 events that we've got going on. We've got a Kettering video history series available on our website. We have monthly theme talks like this one. Library is having them at the Latham Center. We did some commemorative tree plantings out at Tree Fest at Gentilly Park back in April. We have history displays that we are creating for the schools and libraries. Look for some big posters. I just gave Dory 4 of the posters, for this library. We have it was designed to be a student passport to history program, but it's available to everybody. We've had a lot of families using it. I have copies here to hand out to everybody. It's a little self-guided tour of Kettering. You visit the site, find the hidden QR code, scan it with your phone. That logs you in. Once you visit so many sites, you win a prize. Visit all 12 of the sites, you win a bigger prize. Yeah. The state has a similar program, the State Tourism Trails and Tales program. A couple of our parks are on those trails. You visit parks throughout the state of Ohio and again, find the hidden QR code, scan it, and you get prizes when you visit the parks. We've unveiled a couple of new historical markers, recognizing Ermel Fraze for the invention of the pop-top can, and Don Gentili, World War II flying ace. Those are both over at Gentili Park along the bike trail. We'll be having Ohio movie nights at the Fraze this summer. Of course, our big Go Forth community celebration at Delco on July 4th. Community partners, the libraries, are having their own events. I know they've got quite a few scheduled here at the Wilmington-Stroop branch. More to come. Share your ideas. If you have anything that you'd like to see us do, let us know. And all leading up to next year, 2027, is the 75th anniversary of the incorporation of Kettering as a municipality. So, any more questions?
What was the limestone quarry?
The limestone quarries were just north of what was the Beavertown area, intersection of Wilmington and Dorothy Lane. You're heading up towards Wayne Avenue and 10 Wilmington Place. 10 Wilmington Place was kind of the edge of the quarries. It's no longer in Van Buren Township or Kettering because that area was annexed by Dayton in the 1920s. So,
when someone speaks of the history of Kettering, what is considered older, East Kettering or West Kettering?
both.
You know about Mad River Road and then the Beavertown communities.
Yeah, Beavertown is, considered the east half of Kettering. It's the oldest settlement in the area. It was followed closely by a little settlement around the area of what is now Dorothy Lane and Far Hills that was called the Fairmont neighborhood. That's how Fairmont High School got its name. Then there was the Southern Hills neighborhood. So those are the three oldest neighborhoods in Kettering. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Other questions?
Are you going to talk about the history of the Fraze and Lincoln Park?
Yes. Not today. I'm not going to talk about that today. But that is the planned for one of our history videos that we'll be doing. And if the library or the Latham Center wants me to come and talk specifically about something like that, I'd be happy to do it. So talk to them in the office back there.
Did you say October you'll be at Latham talking about the incorporation?
Yes.
The history of that? Okay.
Yes. It's a fun, exciting topic because you don't expect it to happen here in in a place like Kettering, but it did.
Do you have the date already or not?
I do not have the date yet. Check with the Latham Center. They're working on the fall program guide. So it's like, I want to say the 19th, but I'm not sure if that's the exact date. Yeah. So. Any other questions?
Does Sunwatch figure in this history or not at all?
Sunwatch wasn't actually in Van Buren Township, but Sunwatch was going back to our Native Americans slide. Sunwatch was part of the Fort Ancient culture. Subsistence agriculture, permanent settlements, so 1000 AD to 1200 AD. Yeah.
Is there a website or several websites where we can find a lot of what's going on related to the 250th?
Yes.
Like for the greater region?
Well, the City of Kettering website, go to the City of Kettering's page and just type in America 250 and it will bring up what we're doing. And then there is a link there, or you can go directly, you just type in America 250 Ohio. That takes you to the Ohio page that tells what's going on throughout Ohio.
Do you have available online maybe a series of the maps that you showed that show the development of roads and various infrastructure that
Okay. Yeah, all of the maps that you've seen that I've showed come from Miami County or Montgomery County Engineers Department. They have on their website, they have most of these maps posted. They even have a little tool where you can click on a map and then hover over a certain area and it brings up a modern map. That, so you click on the area where you think your house is and yes, that's it'll show the roads that are there now rather than the farms that were there once. So, yeah. Other than that, some of these maps that I've shown, we post them occasionally on our Facebook page, with a little thing about, what did your neighborhood look like 150 years ago? So you can go to the city's Facebook page and sort through the past photographs and see some of those. Yes?
What were some of the movies that are going to be shown at the Frays related to the Ohio history aspect?
Well, they don't all relate to Ohio history. There are movies that are just like popular movies that everybody likes to watch. They're going to show Grease, and
I was
yeah,
there this morning to buy some tickets, but
yeah,
I didn't see that there was any connection at all with the 250
yeah,
celebration for the selection of movies there.
yeah. I don't know. Some of the connections are very tenuous. That it was,
Crazy Rich Asians.
so there was a cameraman.
yeah, it was like a cameraman from Ohio or something like that. Some of the state has put together a database of movies with an Ohio connection. Now, whether that was a movie star who was born in Ohio, Lillian Gish, Paul Newman, whether that was a director, from Ohio, whether the writer was from Ohio, whether it was filmed in Ohio. Harper Valley PTA, the movie from the 1980s, was filmed in Lebanon. It's not about Ohio, but it was filmed in Lebanon. So that's the Ohio connection. So some of them, are things like that. Others, it's like the cameraman, the set director. So it's kind of a tenuous. There were no major films filmed in Kettering. There were no major movie stars from Kettering. We have Gary Sandy, but that's not a major movie star. So,
He'll be upset to know that.
yeah, he's a major TV star.
Radio.
Yeah,
Sneak Rob Lowe over from Oakwood.
yeah. So, any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I surely want to thank you for this program.
Oh,
because
you're
I'm not
welcome.
from Ohio,
Yeah.
and I have just found this absolutely fascinating.
Good.
Yeah,
That is the point.
It really was.
Yeah. That's why we do this.